because women don't actually get to failure. They can keep going. All right, Mike Mentzer and his HIIT training. Is it going to have you squatting 500 pounds in 1 week? Good, maybe. It's possible. Anything's possible. But probably not likely. And I wanted to talk about it. People have been asking me questions about Mike Mentzer since I started my channel. I've seen there's a huge resurgence in his training. Actually, it wasn't this big even when he was around. So I guess it's one of them things you got to dive for your program to be successful. Let's get into it. This is Ryan over at High Carb Generator. Welcome to my channel. So I took some notes, and the other day I was going through some of my paperwork that I had to shred, and I realized that I have these old notebooks here. There's a bunch of them filled, with people's progress. And so I figured after I've trained a lot of people, hundreds back in the day, and a lot of them were actually HIIT training. Now, he wasn't that popular back then, and the cell phone and Instagram, which he would have probably hated, has made him popular. So it's kind of funny. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with Mike Mentzer before we get into the workouts was, here's basically a quote from him. Carbs, you need them if you want to be big and have strong muscles and have a lot of energy. You're not going to get fat from white rice. This is a quote from him. And one of the things that he actually liked to do during workouts was have fruit juice, and he ate lots of fruit. Okay, and so there's that. He was one of the first ones to start talking about high carb, and that everybody was ridiculous with starving themselves on carbs. I am going to have people down in the comments section tell me how he liked to count calories, and that is true. However, when you're on steroids, which he was fully admitted to, your world is a little different. You don't have, your hormones are basically regulated by you. If you are going to really cut your calories down to cut for whatever.
Notice as well that he eliminates stretching or performing aerobics. You're wasting your time and recovery ability by stretching. You'll maintain or even increase your flexibility by performing all of your weight resistance exercises through a full range of motion. And as for aerobics, it's not just a waste of time, it's counterproductive. And it uses up a sizable portion of the body's limited reserve of resources known as recovery ability.
Your hormones are going to go down with that if you are not taking hormones like these bodybuilders are to this day. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. He did try to stay under 2,000 calories. He wasn't very tall. So it makes sense for him. He was not a very tall man. The workouts. One thing, I can still hear him saying this is weight lifting, not weight throwing.
This is not weight throwing, this is weight lifting.
He had a cadence of 5 up, hold for 5, and then 5 back down. So your contraction's 5 seconds, your static is 5 seconds, and your eccentric is 5 seconds. And I'm actually going to go into things that I experimented with and things that I found in different books of his. There's actually a book that unfortunately I sold of his, and my other one got destroyed in my previous house because it flooded every single time it rained, and I didn't know that at first, and I lost so many books. There is differences between what he talked about in his training, and then there was that last book that came out after he died, which really just seemed like a money grab on John Little's part, who also worked with Bruce Lee. So there's a little controversy with that guy. The point behind high intensity training is to work your muscles out to the absolute maximum, and then rest. So that could be 4 days, that could be 7 days. People ask me about my training, how often I had people training. So I am going to break that down, but I'm going to break that down after I break down the workouts, what I found, and different things like that. So what you are going to have in the beginning, if you're new to training, if you've never lifted weights, he did suggest, and I think this is a very good idea, just go do a general weightlifting program of almost any kind, pyramid style working out for 2 weeks. Take 2 weeks off. Just kind of because we have this muscle called type C muscle. What that is get your lazy ass out of the house if it's burning muscles, which are extremely fast twitch, because it's right. You got to, the house is on fire. You got to get out of there. This is not slow twitch muscles. I'm not going to get into muscle fibers in this, but know that you have these. They develop on people who are couch potatoes, basically, or don't do much physical activity. And they're there, right? So you got to get rid of those in the beginning, because it will give you superhuman strength for a split second. You're like the granny who's 85 pounds, lifts a car off of somebody. You know, this is type C muscles. They break really quick. Really quick. So you're going to want to work those out, want to get that kind of out of the system, that lactic acid out of the system, then give yourself 2 weeks and get started with this. A lot of people aren't going to do that. So you're going to be more sore. You were forewarned. All right. So the 4 to 7 days, you're going to be weak in the beginning. You're going to be weaker than you're going to be 6 months in the beginning if you do this right. So in the beginning, you're probably going to do maybe like Monday you work out, and then Friday you work out, and then maybe Tuesday you work out, and you know, so on and so forth. If you want to take weekends off, you can, and then you would just start Monday. And that's how it goes. Basically, the more time off you take, kind of the better. But it's not like once a year training. This is like at most 2 weeks off. So that's kind of where you're going to be in that. I will answer a little bit more of that when I get into it. Anyways, so day 1 is chest back, incline press. So you would just do incline presses, 3x12 to get yourself warmed up. And then you would go immediately after warming up, you would go to the pec deck. So the pec deck is this one. And then you would do your incline press right afterwards as a superset, and you would go to failure. What is failure? Failure is a weird thing if you're training men and women, because women don't actually get to failure. They can keep going. Men get to failure. Now that's true in other areas of physical activity. So women are hard to judge when they actually get to failure, because there's this thing called tensile strength and fire rate of muscles, and women can't actually fire as heavily as men can. Men can almost fire 100% of their muscle mass in any given area. Women cannot. I think the most they can do is somewhere in the 70 to 80% range. Because of that, they can't actually reach failure. So you can train basically a woman to, you know, quote unquote failure a couple times a day. This is sounding like a porn video. But you can get her there a couple times a day, where a man, you can't. It's just, you spent your load. Man, this is really, this is really coming. There's no other way to say this. You've gotten there. It's there. You can't do it again that day. Unless you're on high carbs. As I'm going through and editing this video, I noticed that I have failed to talk about failure. I kind of beat around the bush. Oh my gosh. I swear this isn't happening on purpose. This video. Oh, failure because of this, because women actually don't reach failure, and because men, you know, are almost non-functional after they do it. He basically just says that you get to a point where you no longer think that you can do a positive rep, and a positive rep is whatever is the concentric movement. So if it's a bench press, it's the up. If it's a squat, it's up. Okay, so that is the definition in this case of failure. You don't really want to take it. You can, and this is where Dorian Yates, and I really wasn't going to talk about this too much. Dorian Yates, who was a student of Mentzer, who supposedly hates him now, he went to a point of like throwing up in the corner or throwing up in a bathroom type failure that I don't think is necessary for somebody who's not training for the Mr. Olympia or Ms. Olympia or whatever it is. So failure is you can no longer in your mind do a positive rep. Now, it's good to have a good training partner or to pay a trainer to watch you, because they're probably probably going to push you farther than you're going to push yourself in almost every circumstance. I know that was the case for me. This is why I liked having a training partner, and this is why we would actually set up our schedule. Sometimes he and I even worked at the same place just so we would have the same workout schedule. So there you go. It's good to have that sort of thing in your corner. So this is chest and back day. This is really an interlude. So anyway, so get back to so you do your incline press warm-ups, 3x12. You do progressively work down, so it is a pyramid. And then after that, you do a lat pull downs. Make sure that your back is vertical, not slouching, not behind your back. Make sure and your pelvis is in the right position, because otherwise your lower back is arched and you're not going to work out right. So you want your pelvis in neutral position, and then you want your back straight, and that's and then you do the lat pull downs. After you are done with that first set, you would immediately go over to the pullovers, which not all gyms have, but it's the one that's kind of like this, and you want to come all the way down so you complete the range of motion. And right after that, you would go to the lat pull downs. And again, vertical spine, neutral pelvis, one set to failure. Here's the thing. So then the next one after that is 4 sets of deadlifts. Now that is in some of his training books and not in some of his training books. So if in the beginning, if you're watching this and you're a beginner and you are just new to this, I would actually omit the deadlifts in the beginning. You probably are not going to be able to do a whole lot the day afterwards. If you add deadlifts, or you can just not do the lat pull down or pull over and just do the deadlifts. That's another option. This is why it's good to work with a trainer, and this is why I liked working with people. All right, so day 2, leg press with warm up. It is 3x8 to work it down to 3 reps. Leg extension. So you're going to go to leg extension. That's where you got your feet, you extend your legs. You do that to failure, and then you immediately get to a leg press machine. Hopefully, they're usually close to each other, and you would do your presses. You'll have that machine already set up. You will do your leg presses until failure. There is a safety pin just in case this goes terribly awry in almost everything, but it's really not hard to hook the pins back up, and you're pretty safe on that. Then you do leg curls. I just have it written down. Leg curls supersetted with calf raises for 1 set, and that's it. Now, I'll get to that in a second. Day 3, delt, biceps, and triceps. Ideally, day 3 would be minimally 12 days from day 1. Delt laterals, which is just, raising. And make sure you're doing this in a 5x5. Make sure you're doing 5x5. If you're not doing 5x5, and what's 5x5? 5 seconds up, static, 5, down, 5.
Lifting. You lift it under full muscular control. Much better. Let it all the way down and stop. That's enough.
Okay, and you're going to do this on all sets. After you do that, there is some variation with the shoulder one. I like the military press afterwards. I feel like if you can get the strongest part of the shoulder worked out, you are going to be able to hit the other heads. There's 3 heads on the shoulder, a lot easier, and that's why I did the military press. There is some variation there. So military presses, you are straight back, neutral pelvis, press, whether that is on a machine or whether that is with free weight. And then you would do curls. You do 1 set of warm-up curls, and then you do your final to failure set with curls. This one, you might want to do the machine. If you fail, you're not going to hit yourself in the nuts or patch when you're done, because when it falls, it might just take the guys out. Tricep extension supersetted with machine dips. 1 set. So extensions, with usually a rope or something like that, and then you would just, and then you would do the dips after that. Do that on a machine for sure, because failing on dips, that could go bad real quick. All right, so here is some of the things that I want to talk about, some of the things that I did with my clients over the years. If you read his second to last 2 books, the black one is the best one by far. If you can get your hands on it, it's expensive these days. It's probably $150. But if you can get your hands on that one, that was by far the best. So he talks about some other methods of training, and one that I actually use a lot, and that is to do leg extensions supersetted with squats, and that would be your workout for the day. I actually like that one more. However, squatting. What was I talking about? Squat. Oh, so here's the thing. A lot of people are using the machines these days, and I don't think that's a very good idea. The reason being is if you're using a lot of the machines, you're not using your stabilizer muscles. And if you're not using your stabilizer muscles, you're weak in a terrible area. So it's kind of like having a house, the foundation and inside the walls. You don't see that, but that's actually what's holding up your house. And it's kind of the same thing. You see the pretty muscles, or you see the pretty walls and the pretty everything in your house. But if you don't have the structure holding it up, stabilizing it, you don't have a whole lot. I think Jay Cutler was actually one who he was stepping down off a curbside onto a street or something like that, and he popped something in his cab because he would only squat on the Smith machine, which I think is a terrible idea. So you really got to watch out for that. That's really something. This is why I like adding in the free weight movements. If your gym doesn't have free weights, your gym is garbage. Find another one, even if it means going a little farther out of your way, because you're only going to be, if you're doing this style, you're only going to be working out every 4 to 7, maybe even 2 weeks. Okay, so it's not really that big deal. If you're doing it every day, I could see bitching and moaning about that. And that brings me to another thing. I really think that the more free weights you can do with this, but however, you are going to be going to failure on squatting and possibly bench press, which isn't always great. So get a squat rack, set up the pins, squat down, make sure that the bar wins. If you were to fail, the bar is just going to be falling off your shoulders. It's not going to be contorting your neck. It's not going to be breaking your neck. I just saw a video the other day of somebody who didn't set this up and apparently died because his body failed and it took his neck out so don't do that. Just make sure that you use the equipment for the reason the equipment was made, was to be a safety squat rack. Set up the pins, set up the bar, whatever it is. Some of them it's a leather bar, some of it's a straight bar, some of it's there's just different variations. Set it up to do exactly what it is that it's built for. If you drop the weight, who cares? It might make a lot of noise. If you are at the shittiest gym on the planet, it might ring an alarm and you get kicked out and demand that you get your money back, like I did, and I got my money back. So set this stuff up. So, there's catchers on the if you're doing bench press. If you're doing bench press free weight style, don't use collars. I don't understand why I see people using collars. If you fail on the bench press and it's stuck on your chest, and I had this happen to me 1 or 2 times, the one I really remember, I didn't have collars, so I dumped the weight. It just rocked to the one side, the weight falls off, and it kind of catapults the weight off the other side. I survived. The weights don't. Who the fuck cares? Even if they made you pay for these things. Cares. So keep that in mind. Keep all this in mind when you are lifting, that things are going to happen. I've got circumstances with me that have happened. I still showed up to the gym when I was healed. So set this up as best you can to keep you as safe as possible. But I really think lifting free weights is a lot more beneficial Now, maybe one leg day you're going to do free weights, and maybe the next leg day you'll do on the machine, and vice versa with the chest and back day, vice versa with the arms and shoulders day. Pick your poison. But I really, and here's another thing too. Maybe you got two gyms, and one's got free weights and one doesn't, but the one's closer to your house and you don't have time to get to the other one. So you do stuff on the machine that day. He is big into machines. He is basically a byproduct of Arthur Jones. Arthur Jones is basically the reason the gym industry exists. He's the one that created the machines. He created Nautilus. So he was really big into lifting weights on a machine because Nautilus actually had, it was basically an offset camber, I think is what it's called. A lot of machines use an exact, the camber for the machine is actually in the middle, but it shouldn't be. Our arms, our legs, our everything are not on center. If you know anything about machinery, this will make a little bit of sense to you. So it's off camber. And that's why his machines were so great, is because it actually followed the pattern of the body. But a lot of these machines don't do that. So that's why I don't like using machines. And the only time, actually, knock on wood, I don't even think this is real wood, but the only time that I ever got hurt was on machines. This is why I'm not a big fan of them. And I see a lot of people using them too much. So that is maybe a good thing to do for your recovery days off, is to jump on trampoline like I have next to me, link down below. Affiliate link, help me out. Because you are not going to work out your stabilizer muscles when you are on machines. It's just not going to happen. Basically, and the one last thing that I wanted to talk about before I really edit this video and get it done is, I think it's the Black Book, the Heavy Duty 2, he did talk about a workout that actually, in my mind, is like the one that I would do if I ever went back. He got to a point where he only did squats and deadlifts. That's it. That's all he would do, according to the book. I didn't follow him. And I actually really like that workout because in my mind, you can work out every single body part in your body with a squat and almost every body part with the deadlift. So if you use those two, I think you could build the best body that you could ever build and just recover and do it over again. It might take, a week or so to get back to it, but that's a really good program. Squat, you can cheat on as well, but not when you got a trainer. They can see if you're parallel or not, or a little bit below parallel, which is where you should be, ass to grass. But that is the king of all workouts. I would actually almost bet that you could skip doing all of this and just do squats. That's it. It works every single muscle of the body. If you have a bar that is a low bar squat, is going to work out every muscle in your body. Every muscle. This is why when I see people are like, well, you got to work out your abs. If you are doing a squat of any kind, front squat or back squat, or even high bar squat, which is really stupid. I don't like being axially loaded like that. But if you are, and your abs aren't sore afterwards, you have something wrong in that kinetic chain of yours, and you have got to work on that. So, back to it. Mike Mentzer's training. The squats was actually in the Black Book. It was called Heavy Duty 2. It's the best book I think that he has written. Another couple of things that was in there is if you are at the stage of plateaus, you can start doing pin pulls for deadlifts or pin pushes for squats. And what that means is if you can squat 315 pounds pretty easily, you can put 405 and just do stand up. So you've only got a couple inches to go, but you kind of get your body neurologically ready for the extra amount of weight, and it starts getting less apprehensive about lifting that weight, and you start having more of an ability to get to that weight. Conversely, as the pin pulls, you would basically put pins in the squat rack right around mid shin level, if not a little higher, and then squat. Like if you could deadlift 315, you would put 405 on there or something like 365. on there. And then you would do deadlifts with that because it's less range of motion and it builds the neurological pathways that allow you to start lifting this weight. Most of the time, you know, you've got the muscle that you've got. You're going to build a little bit more muscle, but the muscle that you got is largely going to be doing the lifting that you're going to have in the future. But it's the neurological pathways, the motor skills that you have that isn't, or don't have basically, that isn't allowing you to lift the weight that you want to lift at that present time. So if you get that neurological pathway started, if you start building those new neurological pathways, it's kind of like doing the Jamba walk run on the Cellerciser. It has a similar effect to that. You will start seeing yourself out of plateaus. Now, one of the things that people have been asking me about is training frequency. And that is going to vary based on the person. You're going to see women recovering a little slower than men. But men go to failure at a higher level than women do. So it kind of equals itself out in the long run. If you've noticed a decline in somebody's ability or your ability, if you're just watching this and you just want to do this for yourself, if you notice a decrease in the amount of weight that you can lift, take a couple weeks off and come back at it. You're probably going to start off where you left off and go from there. That brings me to, he does have in there that training frequency can be once just every 2 weeks. I never had anybody get to that point other than myself. I had a couple men get to the 12-day mark. But that was about it. That was about it. So really keep an eye on that. There's a couple things to watch for. Lactic acid in the muscles isn't always an indicator. You know, if your lymphatic system is slow at draining, you know, you're going to have that in your system longer. That isn't always an indicator. If your lifts are going up pretty easily, percentage-wise, I don't know what that would be. Maybe 5 pounds. 5 pounds total per session. So like say your chest and back, if you could add 5 pounds onto the pec deck and you could add 5 pounds onto the pullover, or conversely, if you're only doing deadlifts, or if you're doing deadlifts on top of that, if you can add maybe 5 pounds or so. In the beginning, you might even be adding 10 to 15 pounds, but at some point you're going to hit the wall. And that's when you're going to have to start playing around with time off and adding, in my mind, more food. This is actually when I added more food into people's regimen. And, you know, you would think that would add more fat to them, but it didn't. It was just going purely to recovery from the workout. And your body needs very little protein to actually recover a muscle or to build a new muscle. I think it's like it's like 3 grams or so. It's a very small amount, because your muscle is just a storage unit for glycogen. So you need more carbohydrates, and the carbohydrates is what it uses energy-wise to build the muscle that you're building. So if you're starving yourself of carbohydrates, you're starving yourself of actually building muscle. Now, there's 2 different kinds of building muscle. There's sarcoplasmic, which is kind of like it's a fluid that this is the bodybuilding muscles, right? This is they're flexing and they got this real plump looking muscle. Then there's muscle fiber building. And that's what you see in the guy who's 150 pounds but can, squat 800. He's purely working in that zone. He's got no sarcoplasmic whatsoever. The bodybuilder has almost only sarcoplasmic and has none of the fiber. Not to say that their muscles are smaller, because they're usually on steroids, and that is like protein synthesis when you're on steroids is so escalated, you can't even come close to it if you're just natural. So there's 2 different variations. The variation that you're likely going to build on this program is going to be sarcoplasmic, but you are going to mix in some of muscle fiber building, just like any bodybuilder does. This is definitely a bodybuilder program, because while there's no set ranges or rep ranges listed on these sets, most of the time on legs, you're probably going to be in that 12 to 20 mark. So that's definitely way outside of the building for muscle. You know, convert, you know, like you're going to be in the 8 to 12 range for upper body and the 12 to 20 range for the lower body. And that's what type of muscle you're going to build. I don't know what else to really add to this other than the biggest part about this is you're not weight throwing. You're not using any momentum whatsoever. And when you're not using momentum whatsoever, that is true strength right there. You see a lot of these guys, you know, there's a pendulum, there's the muscle arm, there's the, you know, there's all these kind of leverages that you're going to have within the body. That's how the body works. That's why you can see these anorexic people still moving around, because the lever arm is so good that it needs very little muscle to actually move. So if you take that out of the equation as much as you can, you're going to get stronger pretty quick, but it is going to require more recovery. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say about it. If there's any comments, questions down below, let me know. I probably will never step foot in a gym again for myself. It's weird. I asked my buddy the other day, Sunday, because I asked him, I said, would you want to train this way again? He said, hell no. He's like, I'm not trying to get any bigger than I already am. And I'm not either. So I probably won't. But I would be willing to help people as much as I can with this. But I'm not doing it for free. So I'll have to figure that one out. I'm just doing way too much for free at this point. Anyways, comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Anyways, thanks for watching.
Okay, now you're warmed up in your pecs, your shoulders, your triceps. Let's proceed to the first exercise of the superset.